Oh, the video stopped? Lord.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My bad. Have to check my Palm Pilot. What's going on, everybody? And thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Man Up Real Talk podcast. I am and forever will be your host with the most, Mr. Michael Wiley, saying greetings and salutations to all of you, our faithful followers and listeners. Y'all know we appreciate every like, share, click, and download, or whatever it is that you do to support this podcast, because we know that had it not been for you, there would not be no us. So we greatly and obviously appreciate that. Now, for those of you all that's joining us for the first time, whether it's live or watching this at a later date, we say welcome. And for those of you all that's coming back for another heaping of good old Man Up Real Talk, we say welcome back, because your boys is back with the Man Up Real Talk podcast, the podcast for the people. And joining me as always is my brother from another mother, Mr. Philip Hines, a.k.a. Mr. Classic, a.k.a. OG, Triple OG, a.k.a. Burn Hollywood Burn, because I smell a riot going on. What's going on, man?
I love that little public.
You ain't hear that one, did you?
What's going on, brother? How you doing, man?
Man, I can't complain, man. I'm feeling good.
How you feel mentally?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm in a good space. I'm in a really, really good space.
You and Eddie got me drinking coffee late tonight.
Hey, man, look, it's a coffee night tonight. I'm official because I got an actual real cup. Because normally I be sipping coffee out of a. Who does that? Who sips coffee from a red cup? You know who do that? Inglewood niggas do that. That's who. Other than that, I'm feeling pretty official.
Our mother-in-law gave me a nice coffee cup I have yet used yet.
Oh man, look, if it's the same one as this one, it's the bomb, bro. It keeps your coffee hot for at least about 10 hours. And I don't even drink coffee like that. But this cup encourages me to drink coffee. So, I appreciate that. What's going on to everybody in the chat? If you're in the chat, chime in so I can give you a shout out. I see Mitzi Faye.
Hey, Mitzi Pooh.
She here as always, and I appreciate her, and everybody else that's watching now, and those that'll be watching later on. We appreciate you. Coffee, and I know, Elena. I feel so adult now, and I got an air fryer. Come on, that's how I'm adulting. That's how I do it. I got an iPhone, and a coffee mug, and an air fryer, and a checking account. You can't tell me nothing.
Hey, man, listen.
I'm like Kanye up in this piece.
It's called a good quality of life, huh?
La, wait till I get my money right. You can't tell me nothing. Wait. Yes, sir. Listen, we got a great one for you all on tonight. All of my movie heads, I think y'all gonna enjoy this because, listen, y'all know how we do on Man Up. Not only do we try to entertain, but we also try to do what? Inform. And we got some good stuff on tonight because we're going to be talking about the impact of blacks in cinema. That's right, black movies that mean some things. And no, I ain't talking about Paid in Full.
Man, listen, you gonna stop dissing Paid in Full.
No, I ain't talking about Belly.
You gonna stop dissing Belly too. Those are black cinematic films.
And let me throw this out. Let me throw this out there for y'all. Scarface is not a black film.
Scarface is a classic. Stop it.
It's not a black film.
That's so disrespectful.
Stop it.
It's ridiculous how disrespectful you are.
It's not a black film, dog. That's all I'm saying. So look, our guest on tonight. Look, I mean, I don't have to introduce him. I guess I can. But I really don't have to because he don't need any introductions. This brother, he is he's one of them cats that you just look smarter standing next to. And you ain't even got to say nothing. You just do like this when he speak. Be like you really know what he's talking about.
I call him the definition of knowledge yourself. That's
look, man, this guy.
That's my nickname for Brother Eddie.
You talk about
knowledge yourself.
You talk about Black History. I couldn't have a show during Black History and not have this man on. I mean, here's the dope part. Not only is he a Black History specialist, aficionado, if you will.
That man know it. He know it.
I mean, because he know his stuff. But some of you may not have known he's actually a playwright.
Yep.
The man writes scripts. He could be writing the next Boys in the Hood, or the next Love Jones, or the next I don't know. Pick a black movie. He could be the one. He could be the one writing it. So listen, without further ado, I want to introduce to some and present to others the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Eddie Phillips. What's going on, man?
Hey, man. What's up?
He got his mug.
Yeah, I had y'all coffee cup, so I had to pull out my name. You know, my wife bought me. My wife bought me.
That's what's up, man. What's going on with you, bro?
Oh, nothing, man. I'm healing, man. I had some bad falls, some injuries, man, over the holidays. And so I'm slowly healing. My wife is being patient with me while I'm not, at work all the time. So
yeah, they say we the biggest babies when we get hurt, when we get sick.
Oh yeah.
Thank God you're doing better though, bro. Thank God you're doing better.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Absolute. So listen, man. Blacks Cinema. I figured I would call you in on this one because, as I said, and as I mentioned earlier, what was going on with my camera? Lord Jesus. As I mentioned earlier, not only are you someone who I frequent when it comes to Black history knowledge, but being also someone who writes poetry, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I do.
And then you also you have some works that's actually out there.
Yeah.
But you've also done some screenplays and working on one. I hope I'm not putting that out there too soon.
No, you're fine at putting that out there.
Okay. So working on one. So I said, who better than to bring on and talk about the impact of blacks in films? Because one thing that always seems to bug me is how Hollywood is deaf, seemingly, to the fact that black films are not only important for diversity purposes and for the culture, but they make money. And they seem to ignore that fact. And so what I wanted to do is we can talk about some modern films, but I really wanted to kind of go back and talk about how blacks have impacted films. I'm talking about we used to have black theaters, if I'm not mistaken, black movie houses. Yeah. You had there was people who were really significant in regards to black cinema, and I just wanted to kind of bring that to the people and let them know, listen, it ain't just, I tease Phil about Paid in Full and stuff, and those films are actually important for a reason as well. I believe they have their place, but, there is a significant role that we as blacks play in cinema, and I wanted you to kind of educate the people on some of those things, and just to give us some, to break it down to them, let them know exactly the role that we actually played in cinema.
I think that you have to, and I say this to be very real. I think that you have to understand that there should be some anger from African Americans, black people, however you want to call it, for black film. The methodology of film has been around for over almost 100 years now. And can you guys hear me pretty good?
We can hear you just fine.
But the problem with film is that we've always been regulated to, and I should say, in the white collective, we've always been regulated to slave mammies, animals, different things that are not us. If you were to go look at all of the films over, let's say, the last 80 years, you will find that a majority of the films that were made about African Americans have to deal with a couple of things. They have to deal with musicians. It has a lot of music in it. We have our musicians that come in there. It has to do with thuggishness, pimpology, servitude. There was a period in the early days of film, in the before the New Negro era, where the slaves and the mammy and the animal era, as we call it, where people were basically used as animals. The first films that Edison created, right, around 1896, was the watermelon contest, which showed a bunch of black men eating watermelon like savages, right? Films of whites painted in black with acting like black men, dancing around like savages, right? All of these things played a part. So when we go back to those early days of film, there's really not much for us to be proud of in the way that they showed us out to be, right? And so as you come out of that animal era, right, we also have to understand that film is a medium that is also based on the pre of radio and minstrel shows. So the minstrel shows of the 1800s, where they show people in blackface and they talk to Malburisms, and they acting as if we were unintelligent, right? Was huge, was a huge thing. And so all of these different caricatures and different things that were used to basically make us look as if we were inhuman. So that's the first place that you have to start. You can't start anywhere talking about blacks in film without first talking about those issues.
Wow. And speaking of the minstrel shows and the what was that movie that Spike Lee did?
Bamboozled.
Bamboozled. I don't think people really understand it extended further than just movies.
Yeah.
These images that were portrayed as, you know, as the black image was in film, it was on TV, it was an animation.
Yeah.
You know, and it was everywhere. And this was you got to think about, this was the picture.
Well, you got to also think about the fact that I tell my sons all the time, visual is everything.
Yes.
Right? If the visual creates the picture that you condition your mind to accept, right? So that means that for every pickaninny that you saw, for every brute that you saw, you know, I told somebody, even in The Color Purple, right? Let's come a little bit close to modern age. Mm-hmm. Even in The Color Purple, when you see Mr., the first thing you see about Mr. was a loving character. He loved the Suge character. He was kind of pushed into a marriage with the Celie character. But the reality of the screenplay, because that's the screenwriter in me, right? Shows this narrative of this brutal man. Before we ever get an understanding of what Mr.'s story was, we see that Celie is raped by men. So the brutality of black men is pushed throughout that entire film. Rather, she was raped by her father, the stepfather. Rather, it was Mr. Rather, it was Mr.'s father, right? There's a scene in Color Purple that I always tell screenwriters about, right? Where Mr. is sitting on the porch. Celie is in the house. Mr. and Mr.'s father tells her to go get him some water. She goes in there, she goes and gets some water. Mm-hmm. And he's talking, the Mr. Senior is talking to his son. Now, Adolph Caesar, the guy that played the father, was a very short man. Danny Glover's a pretty tall man. Right. But Danny Glover's sitting on a swing. And if you ever go back and watch this film, I want you to notice how Spielberg shot that. You see Adolph Caesar's character put his foot right between his son's legs, between his crotch, right? That's deliberately shown. And he leans in on him and he tells him about how here you got this woman that Suge Avery stand in your house. Now, his father knew that he loved Suge Avery. We didn't know that as an audience really up until that point. And so Celie, the first unity that ever happens between those characters is when she starts to understand there's a deeper story to Mr. But before that, the lead into that was brutality. Beating you, raping you, taking you, just going to the bathroom on you, as the lines were said. So we have to be mindful of the stories and the way that the narratives are written, because they all come back from that beast, pickaninny, brute, mammy mentality that is still at some levels in our film even today.
Wow. Man Up Real Talk with Mike and Phil. We're talking to brother Eddie Phillips about the impact of blacks in cinema. Gotta get a shout out to some people in the chat. What's going on, Big Kev? I see you. I appreciate you, partner. Yeah, Sean, what's good? Joe, I see you. Miss Jackie, God bless y'all. Appreciate y'all for joining us on tonight. Listen, y'all chime in if you got any comments, any questions. We talking about black cinema. So having now these images that's been portrayed, having these images painted, there has to come a time or a point in time where the image, or where we try to change the image. What was the turning point in cinema where blacks were viewed differently?
Well, we always tried to change the image. If you go back and you look at some of the early films, even when blacks were actually in the films, that's the other thing we need to clarify. A lot of times, like in Birth of a Nation, blacks weren't in those films. Those were white people painted in blackface to make fun of us. But we have to understand that it wasn't until coming into the New Negro era, and we call it New Negro era because it happened after World War II. After World War II, what happened was the United States had to have black folks to fight in World War I and World War II. And so for a huge amount of time, though, blacks, right, felt disenfranchised. We didn't just allow, and I take offense because I always get mad when I see people on these shirts talking about I'm not my ancestors. Our ancestors took offense to the same things we take offense to. They watched those same movies. So when you go back and you look at the early black directors, if you go back and you look at Oscar Micheaux, if you go back and you look at Spencer Williams, right, and you go look at these films that black folks made, as you said earlier, they created movie houses because they got tired of being seen as animals in movies, right? But a lot of us don't know those films. When we were talking about doing this show, we talked about the idea of what movies do we want to think people should watch. Right. You know, one of my favorite movies to watch, right, is God's Stepchildren, made in 1938 by Oscar Micheaux. It is one of the most important black movies, but a lot of people don't know it. You probably can go pull it up. I know you can go pull it up at the Library of Congress. I don't know if it's on YouTube. But God's Stepchildren is a huge thing because it shows how the African Americans struggle, right, to be in both worlds, black and white worlds. Nobody had shown that to that point. Remember, we went to war around coming after 1939. So in 1938, for Oscar Micheaux to put that movie out in the black film houses to show you, hey, this is what we're dealing with. Another movie with Micheaux is Body and Soul, right? Body and Soul is another important movie. Most people don't watch, made in 1925, right? Within Our Gates is another one, made in 1919. Very significant because in 1919, you're talking about Red Summer, where it was a whole year of racial murder throughout the entire country. And Oscar Micheaux did a movie about an educated black woman trying to help her school, her community, right? So we had black people who were making movies. We had black folks who were trying to do it. Going into that new Negro era, we took it further because the white man had to be able, and I say it just that way, the white man of that day had to be able to humanize this person that he had made into an animal for the better part of 200 years. And in order to do that, he used film. So we saw films that were made about blacks, right, where it was a little bit softer, right, where it's a little bit easier. They had the ability to be opinionated. They had the ability to say some things. You saw that sometimes when it came down to the mammies, and even in Gone with the Wind. Mammy could talk back. Right. She could be snappy. But Mammy always knew she was a slave. So she could only go so far. Her dialogue would only let her be so far. And then they pull her coattails. And you see in the movie, they'd be like, hey, man, and she'd shut up. So what this was to do was to make it seem like we had some part in them. The other thing, and I don't want to blow you, but the other thing is some of the movies that came after World War II, in order to humanize the blacks, they couldn't just make the black dark. The only dark-skinned black people who were really humanized was the Banner, and she still was a servant. Even the Uncle Tom couldn't say too much, right? He came in with a tray, he walked out of the scene. He may say something real snotty, and he walked out of the scene. He was the butler, right? That's what he was. That's what he was.
Right.
And if you watch those films, that come after all the way up until 1945, 1950. That's kind of what was going on. And then we started to see this thing where they said, well, you know what? You can trust the Negro because he may have white in him. And so then you start seeing movies like Pinky, Lost Boundaries, Imitation of Life, right? And it made us see, so you have this dark-skinned black mama who got this white girl, right, who's her daughter, and she's trying to find her way to pass in society. And then it tries to humanize the nice white people who want to understand this. But remember what I told you. Oscar Micheaux actually showed you a movie, right, that is basically to give you an actual identifier, God's Stepchildren, on how we live. You're not going to find that in Pinky or Imitation of Life. But I can't tell you how many, growing up, how many times I saw Imitation of Life on television. right? How many times they tried to push Pinky, right? Or Black Like Me, or all of these films that put us into this dichotomy where we are acceptable, right? But yet still, we can't speak too much. We still got to follow the rules set by society, even in the films.
Wow.
It's a lot to unpack.
It's a lot. It's a lot, man. That's why I enjoy talking to you because, well,
but you know what, Mike?
Because I'll be like, man, he gave me too much, and I'll be sitting up there like, oh Lord, I ain't want to think about it that deep. But
but you know what, Mike, and I know Brother Eddie can speak to this. It's just like the '70s blaxploitation. Yes. What people don't realize is Hollywood was going broke. Blaxploitation saved Hollywood.
Yeah.
And once they saved Hollywood, they got rid of all of those movies. They was done with them.
Yeah, but even in those movies, right? So when we look at the black exploitation era, let's remember three names that probably do not get credit. Let's remember Melvin Van Peebles, who just passed away, I think.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Sweet baby.
Let's remember Gordon Parks.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yep. And let's remember Ossie Davis.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we have to remember those men is because when Hollywood coming out of the civil rights era and had to do some changes, and as Phil just said, they were going broke. Because what happens with Hollywood is we get offended as a culture, and we say, I'm not even going to your movies, bro. You're not going to keep defaming and demeaning me. So we stop. But those three men were given short budgets, what we call a guerrilla or shoestring budgets to make films. I believe Gordon made The Learning Tree, which is basically based off his life story. Really good movie.
Yes, sir.
I think Melvin made The Watermelon Man, which is about a white man who, who all of a sudden turns black, right? Great. He
made that one, and there was another movie.
Sweetback Badass.
Yes, that one, and 3 Day Pass. He did that one too, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. Ozzy also made Cotton Comes to Harlem.
Yeah.
Now, Ozzy's Cotton Comes to Harlem is very much based off of the earlier films of what you saw with Spencer Williams and Oscar Micheaux, because Ozzy came up in them times and he understood. If you go back and look at the legacy of Oscar Micheaux, he movies like Black Magic, Harlem After Midnight, Easy Street, Daughter of the Congo. Mm-hmm. If you go back and you look at these films, and you can go pull some of these films, funny thing is, we were talking earlier about classic films by Scorsese and De Palma and Coppola and even Spielberg, those films that were made in the early 70s, mid 70s, and how they go back specifically to try to save those films so that they do not go away. But it has been hard to get people to go and actually finance to save the copies of Oscar Micheaux's films, Spencer Williams' movies, to be able for us to know how we were presented actually in those times, not with any stereotypes, not with any of the things that we talked about, what we've been talking about, but to actually show us as people.
Dr. Eddie K. Phillips, Man Up Real Talk. We're talking about the impact of Blackstone cinema. So I wanted to ask you this question because as we're kind of going through the timeline, we really lost a giant in the movie industry earlier this year. Yeah. And I'm talking about Sidney Poitier, who was the Jackie Robinson of black films, if you will. Because he was that one that really kind of kicked the doors in and blazed the trail for other black actors to come in. Mm-hmm. There was a movie, and you know which movie I'm referring to, In the Heat of the Night. And there was a scene in this particular movie.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And this was the scene when he was confronting the I forget the guy's name right now because I haven't seen it in a while. Mm-hmm. But it was a white guy, and the gentleman had replied in a way that Tibbs didn't like it because he slapped him. Mm-hmm. And Tibbs slapped him back.
Slapped the taste out of him.
That particular scene was impactful. And I want you to give your take on what that scene meant for not only that movie, but just for blacks in cinema in general. What was the impact of that particular scene?
Well, I will tell you that the history behind that and why why I love Sidney. When Sidney Poitier died, I was very moved because I watched Sidney and the growth of Sidney, and I'd read his books and things that he was a director. People don't realize he directed Uptown Saturday Night and Let's Do It Again.
Classic movies.
Movies. Let's Do It Again was my dad's favorite movie.
And A Piece of the Action. He directed all three of those. And one thing about Sidney, when that scene happened in Heat of the Night, Sidney, it was so funny because Norman Jewison, right, had said, "Hey, look, I want you for this movie," but the thing is, they didn't come to an agreement on the Endicott scene. When Tim slaps Endicott in that movie, that was not something that was necessarily originally in the script. They argue now and say, "Oh, it was not." Sidney said, "If a man was to slap me, I'm gonna slap him back." And so they put that in there, and that's why you will notice when he slaps him back in that scene. I always laugh. The actor was like, "Whoa, this was not necessarily acting," because Sidney wanted to make sure you understood, right? And I want you to get it. People didn't understand too that this was done at the time in 1967, right, at the height of civil rights, right, Vietnam War. And it was to declare to people that at the time where they were drafting our brothers into the military and sending them out to Vietnam to die. And Dr. King and different people were all against it. And Sidney also played a part in the civil rights movement. He took Rod Steiger, the guy that played the cop. He took those people from the end of the night to civil rights rallies. He paid for plane trips for Dr. King and them to get back and forth for the SCLC.
Yeah.
Him and Henry Belafonte. Sidney was a good man. And when you see that film, that slap heard across the world was a slap to let everybody know in film, we're not taking this no more. We are out of this era of the subservient, carrying your thing, smiling. And what I love about that film, because I'm a film student, I love framing. If you go back and you watch that, you see Endicott and you see Tibbs' character. You see the butler, the guy that used to be on Amen. Yeah. He's in the background. And then you see the cop on the other side.
That was Raleigh?
Yeah. And so in the middle,
snap.
In the middle, though, are the two black characters. Where Sidney slaps him, you see the butler character, he starts laughing. He loses himself in the scene. That wasn't scripted. Because you have to understand, this is a man who had sat here and worked in this industry, and seen what they did. That was the same actor when they did the Alamo, the movie The Alamo, that was supposed to die for John Wayne's character. It's some deep stuff in cinema. And what happens, right? Same actors have to play the characters where you got to sacrifice yourself. You got to be the subservient person. And to have that slap, right, shook everything up. Even as Sidney goes out the door, I tell people, go back and watch the movie and look at the face.
Yeah, dude was shook.
Look at the face.
He was shook.
Right? And it's so important that had to happen, because we live in a place even today, right, where we are still stratified in a situation where they don't want us to be equal. Oh, you can work the job with me, but you not necessarily my equal. Oh, right. You can be here with me, but you ain't really my equal, right? And so I got nothing but praise for Sidney. My actual favorite movie for Sidney, I tell people all the time, and when he passed, I posted the end of it, was No Way Out. If you have never ever watched No Way Out, made in 1950, No Way Out is a powerhouse of a movie. You will not probably, I see it now on certain streaming things, but before Sidney died, you couldn't find it. Because No Way Out tells a story of Sidney being this black doctor working in a white hospital, right? And trying to save a man's life, he dies. His brother's a criminal. And I'm not going to ruin the movie for you, but the end of that movie is so powerful to the truth of what we live in the black cultural experience. And that is when he tells that man, he said, don't cry, white boy, you gonna live. While the white boy is bawling that this black man gotta help him. That has been our life in this country to a greater extent. And and to verbalize it, Richard Widmark and Sidney. What I also find funny about that scene is when this man gets hurt, this white woman who he had been with, right? I mean, literally been with, biblically, and was a friend of, was married to his brother that had died.
Mm-hmm.
The woman tells Sidney, when the man hurts himself, he said he's bleeding out. She tells the man, rip it open even more. Let him bleed. Let him suffer. He ain't nothing but a dog. This shows you the kindness, right? The kindness. And when Sidney passed, I said that. I said, you know, he tried to teach you. He chose him, not only him, but many of those actors back then. We don't do that now, sadly. They chose roles that they knew would elevate. Even though the role might seem subservient, like guess who's coming to dinner, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to do something with this role to make you understand that I'm worth more than what you are trying to show me to be. And Sidney was a master of that. He was a master of that. Because in the Heat of the Night could have been a movie that just showed the abuse. That's kind of what we do now in screenwriting and film. The abuse of blacks by whatever character, protagonist, whatever, in the film. But he didn't do that. And every time somebody mouthed off to him, he checked them.
Yeah.
He gave Jewison allowed him to make the response of, this is how I would respond. So by the end of the movie, I'm a deep fan of the resolution of the movie. Sidney and the cop are leaving, and they're not necessarily friends, but there's a bond there. There's an understanding there. There's a reason for you to understand I am who I am. Y'all know another part, you got me started. Another part of that movie that should stand out to y'all, everybody talks about the slap, but the part that should stand out to you is it all kind of happens around the same time. When Sidney gets pulled in, the cop, they pull all his money out. And the cop's like, hey, blah, 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 why you got all this money? You must have been the dude that killed that rich white man. And Sidney tells her, I'm a detective, right? That's my money. He said, well, how much do you make? I think he tells her, I make $225 a week. He said, that's more than I'm making a year. And the white man lost himself. That's key. Because again, yeah, you might be a detective, you might be a policeman, but you ain't my level. Man. I always feel I'm more than you. So it's a lot of, I have my sons watching The Heat of the Night. It's one of the movies that I put on my list that they have to watch. And we watch it, you know. But ladies and gentlemen, what I would tell you tonight, whatever as we do this program, and I don't want to blow you because you know you talk to me about film, man, I can go all day, but the bottom line is you need to sit down and watch films with your families that are actually going to teach a lesson or teach something about the black experience, not the black experience as described and dictated by white screenwriters, filmmakers, or movie makers, but what you know to be the experience, how you know to live, right? And those are the films that you should be watching. And I'll let y'all go. I'm going to talk for a while.
No, man, this is why we brought you on, son, because I knew
you know, whenever you come on here, we're going to be quiet and let you just
look, because we learning. It's like, you know, because it's the difference in watching a movie and really watching a movie, especially from the perspective of a screenwriter, because you understand framing, you understand, you know, you understand why people are positioned in a certain way, and
you pick up points where a normal person wouldn't pay attention to it.
That's like a good point. That's a good point, because I'm gonna tell y'all something. I was talking to my son earlier today. Y'all remember that movie Jungle Book? Remember the cartoon?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was showing my son, I was like, you know, it wasn't until I was 20-something years old. I used to love that movie, right? I'd be like, you know, I love the music.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was about 20-something years old, I was watching my auntie, my great aunt, she used to record this stuff. And I was watching the movie, and I said, wait a minute. That monkey, Louis, is based off Louis Armstrong.
Yes, he was.
And then I said, wait a minute. The song is, I want to be like you. I want to be human like you. with a bunch of monkeys that sound and kind of move around like they black. And I started to learn the nuances of what they do and how they put things in. I watch Saffron and Sun, just like all the rest of y'all. I love Saffron and Sun. I love the Jeffersons.
Be careful because we got somebody who's a Saffron and Son fan watching right now.
And I'm with you.
They probably want to say, "Oh, Elizabeth's a big one."
Oh Lord.
But then we have to go back, right, and look at the history of that. So when I was trying to figure out why Red Fox, it had a top show and was always fighting with them folks. Do you ever notice how, other than the Jeffersons, right? Good Times, different shows, people was having fights, right, in the background to keep that black person on or whatever. And then I started to understand. I understood the baseline of what was going on, right? And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the minstrel show. When you go back and because we can't leave that part out of this whole experience. Spencer Williams, though he did a lot of films, right? Spencer Williams played Amos in Amos and Andy.
Amos and Andy.
Amos and Andy. And one of the things that was so bad about Amos and Andy is it created these minstrel characters and brought them
there, brother Catfish.
Yeah. Brought them to television, brought them to film, and made us have a whole nother generation of people who were inspired by him. But the Sapphire character, y'all remember because I think I said this before, what the Sapphire character was? The Sapphire character is always the angry black woman. And every time I would watch, after going and learning these things, I would watch Saffron and Son. I would watch certain shows. I was like, why is that black woman so mad at this black man for no reason?
Like Esther?
Yeah.
Just always mad at Fred?
Always mad. And then I started to look at the scheming, conniving black man, right? Just like Amos and Andy, right? Fred always trying to come up with a business venture.
Yep.
Fred always trying to do... George Jefferson always trying to come up with something, right? And we don't get the ability to just show the entrepreneurship of who we are. It always makes it seem like we're scammers, schemers, and that the black woman has to come in and say, hey, why are you doing that? You ain't no good. You wrong. You evil. Even with the Jeffersons, when Weezy would sit there and say, George, why you doing all that? Right? Be nice to our friends. But George, they would show every now and again, he came from Harlem. He came from being hard, right? But that was, if you missed that episode, all you ever saw was, man, that's a mean, angry, scheming family, whatever, right?
Right. But then you got to remember, for those that, we might be dating ourselves, but remember, the Jeffersons was a spinoff of All in the Family.
Yeah.
Because he was Archie Bunker's neighbor at first. And they went into a little bit of his story, even
with Archie, though. Archie was never a schemer. Archie was a bigot. Archie went to work. He was a diligent, hard-working man that came home every day, right?
Yeah. And he had racist tendencies, but he was a hard-working man.
How did George get their money? How did he get the money to open up his cleaning business?
The dry cleaning,
because of an accident, right? So a black man lucked into some money, right? Not that he worked hard. And so we have to understand the methodology of how they do what they do to us. And it still goes on today. If y'all go through and you start looking at, look, I told somebody just the other day, I said, I have a real problem in the way we do things in our TVs and our TV shows and things like that, where we are always using Malburisms. Malburisms is when you say something incorrect, and they still use that. That comes from the minstrel show era.
Now give me an example of that.
So if I come up in and say, I'm going to go and dance, I'm going to dance a jig, but I say I'm going to dance a dog, right? Dance a dog. Or I'm going to say something that is unintentionally, I'm just confusing. Or I say a word like, I'm confused, and I say I'm Confucius, right? Those types of Malburisms still play a part. And I'm gonna tell you something. Even in our filmmaking today, the young brother that was on Everybody Hates Chris, I saw a thing with him that he was saying white men need to stop writing dialogue for black people. And I'm with that, because we have to understand that this is not based on racism.
It's based on culture.
Culture.
It's
and
based
also,
on culture.
Because we got black writers who write Malburisms too.
Yeah.
We got black writers who perpetuate things, right? We got black writers who emphasize things. I was telling somebody, everybody make fun of old boy from Empire because he say Maine, right? Maine.
Hey, Maine.
Hey, mine.
Spider-Man.
But
Hey, mine.
we laugh at him, and it's fine, because I think it's supposed to be somewhat, but we gotta always look deeper, because at the heart of all of this, if you were to name some of the top movies, right, of the last 25 to 30 years, how many of those movies had to deal with gangsterism, musical celebrities?
Now, when you say top, you're not talking about box office. You're talking about like award winning or like high honors and stuff like that.
Or things that are honored, things that are put in. Let me give you an example. When a couple of years ago, we had this whole big thing back in '91, actually, too, where everybody's talking about the black emergence of film, and how black people were going to be making all of these movies.
Because right around that time, that's when like kind of like Spike Lee was really coming on the scene.
Yeah, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, I know.
Look, Spike, so I had an opportunity many years ago to have a few minutes with Spike Lee, and I think Spike's a good brother, but I also think that Spike deals with a God complex. I think he's so. I find myself agreeing with Spike a lot more as we both get older. But I think in the beginning, because there was not enough, I think that there are some things that have to come from competition, right? Right. And I think that when like one of my favorite movies is Rosewood, right? I like Rosewood.
Eddie, I'm gonna tell you though. Yes. I watched it, and it's like after I watched Rosewood, man, it was just I couldn't.
Anger?
I was so mad, and I'm like I've never watched a film.
All that over. Just think, all that over a lot.
Yes, I have never watched a film where I was just angry, and I'm like, are you all of this for? And it was just, I'm sorry,
when that man finally went home and you heard the smacks and all that.
Yes, it was.
I ain't gonna lie to you, I gotta be honest, I kind of clapped a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, but that film, that's. I can't think of too many films and that was really kind of like the whole gist of why I wanted to do this show, because when you talk about impact, that was a movie that really impacted me. And then mind you, I've seen Roots and I've seen other movies like that, but it was something about Rosewood that
movie had to be made by a black man.
Yeah,
by a black director. And I say that not to be racist, but you have to have an understanding, a feeling of what you're talking about, and have an understanding of what our ancestors have lived through. And when I'll give an example. If you watch A Time to Kill, and you watch A Time to Kill, and you see Samuel Jackson, he's screaming and he's hollering, but at the same time, you got to understand what was done to his character's daughter in that film.
Right.
And so it humanized the man, right, and showed the man in that. If you're going to tell me that it's perfectly all right for you to go out and lynch somebody based on some theory, then why can't I go out here and defend my own family?
Exactly.
So I think that those types of films like Rosewood and things like that, I try to get my kids to watch films, my wife does too, that shows a human trait. John Q. I like John Q. because it humanizes. It shows that we care about our kids. We care about our families. The Book of Eli, which is another good movie.
You're taking my list, man. You're picking my list apart.
That was not given any credit, right?
And it was a great film.
Great film at a time when Hollywood was trying to do the deep late reveal.
Yes.
But it was a good film to show you, right, this black man carrying the word. There's symbolic symbolism
and it was the word. And you gotta. And what was so dope about the Book of Eli is that you know, if you hadn't seen it, you should have seen it by now. But the Bible, that was the book, and it was so dope that everybody wanted this book because they knew the power. Or the guy who wanted the book, he knew that he understood the power that religion had over people and how it can make people docile and also it can make people subservient, and he was going to use that for that purpose. But you know, Denzel, right?
It's preachy.
Exactly.
They didn't want it because it was preachy, because it dealt with God.
Yep.
A man that was blind, being led by God.
Yes, sir.
Right? And so even then, see, I'm gonna tell y'all something real quick that we have to do as screenwriters, right? I think I told y'all this before. Black screenwriters, we always got to give them a win.
Yeah,
now, what I mean by that, we always got to write something in our screenplay that doesn't paint them in a bad light, right? So the girl who takes over after him, we got to write that in there because we got to kind of make it seem
like, well, how come the girl couldn't be black?
Exactly. So the point is, but I can't sell that screenplay if Eddie Murphy said it years ago. Yeah. When they made Boomerang, some people was mad. All these Negroes in Boomerang, ain't seen no white folks in here, right?
Yeah.
When he just made the sequel to Coming to America, people was like, hey, it was
all these black folks. What's going on?
When they did when Disney did Black Panther, people was like, the white folks are only here as props. Right. Well, after 100 and some years of you using us as props,
come on,
how you mad, right?
Come on, man.
Hey, let's talk about something else too with Marvel, because everybody like Marvel, and I like Marvel too.
Oh Lord!
But I watched that last movie, that they had with that group of people, and they had that brother up in there.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna tell y'all something. Tropes are tropes. Stereotypes are stereotypes. There was a scene. That brother is jumping. He's scary, right? And I'm like, whoa, what are we doing, man? Why come he immortal? Why is this brother so scared of sounds and everything going on? But again, it comes down to filmmakers, screenwriters, developers, producers who sit there and say to themselves, hey, you know what? This is all I know how to write. They only know that because that's all they've been saying.
Thank you, Jackie.
Yes, it was trash. And I didn't want to get y'all taken off.
You was trying not to say it, baby. You was trying not to say it, baby.
You know, hey, listen. Listen. I'm just letting y'all know now because it's so good. It might run a little bit longer than an hour, but okay. I gotta. And I mean, if I can, I mean, if you got the time, Eddie, because there's so many things I want to ask. There's so many things I want to ask you. You were talking about the minstrel show earlier, and people already know my feelings on this. I gotta ask you, what are you, Phil? You don't even know what I'm about to ask. What I'm about to ask, Phil?
No, go and ask.
No, what I'm about to ask?
Nothing. Go and ask, brother.
Okay, so what are your views on Tyler Perry?
So my grandfather.
Wait, and this okay, because this is. Okay, go ahead, and then I'll go ahead. You say you. I just tell me what your views on Tyler Perry.
So you have to understand the genius of a Tyler Perry.
Hey, okay, all right.
And I'm gonna tell you why. Because when he went out and he created the Medea character in place, right? I'm trying to make this as clean as possible. He understood the history of what white people would accept. White people, no matter what you tell them, I'm talking the most racist, they love a mammy.
Yep.
They love a mammy.
Yep.
And
you
so
right about that.
What he understood was Hattie McDaniels was one of the first black women to get an Academy Award,
yes,
right?
She was.
For playing a mammy, a sassy mammy. He understood it. Now, I'm not saying that Tyler tried to do some things as best he could. Right. But you got to also understand that film, now I was taught this when I was in film school, film is a business. And in order for me to step forward in film or in plays or whatever, I got to give them a little bit of what they want.
Right.
And then I got to be able to try to make that same switch. So if you look at his plays and even in his movies, there are moments there where Tyler tries to speak to the black experience, even in that Medea character. That is different than the minstrel or the early Mammy films, because Mammy wasn't allowed to speak to that, right? She wasn't allowed. Remember, in Imitation of Life, right? I think it was Imitation of Life, where the woman was making the pancakes, and the woman told her, you can stay here for free, and this and that, and all this. And she gave her an offer. She was like, "Oh, I wouldn't want to pay you anything," even though she was using her pancake recipe in order to make money. Look,
ain't your Bible?
and that's what it was. But the reality of it is, right? Tyler has to be able to tell a story. I get mad sometimes too when I think it goes overboard. But he has to connect with the young people, and then in order to keep that, now he's in a situation where in order to keep that studio open, he got to get what they want.
He got to, and see, but see, here's the problem. Here's the problem that and I do not want people to think that because I'm not hating on Tyler Perry, because I like what he did. I like the fact that he didn't wait for a place at the table. He built his table, right? You have to admire the man for that. My issue with Tyler Perry is that in the process of him catering to his fans and catering to that demographic of people that like his work, he does not seem to care so much about the quality of the work. And it's just like, and it bothers me because, like, I'll sit up and I'll try to watch some of the because he has so many shows. I'll try to watch some of the shows that he put out, and I can't, because I'm just like, I get that he's giving people a chance and he's giving people an opportunity, but it's like, how long do you expect me to accept your mediocrity?
You know, that comes down to what I was saying earlier about Spike, right? I think that everybody needs to be a step. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that what Tyler should do, I said the same thing. I had my issues with Oprah. I remember going to the studio, me and my boy, my homie. We went over to go to Oprah's studio when she was over at Harpo in Chicago. And we went there for a developmental meeting. I was 17 years old, and we walked up in there, and we had a dynamite script. And we knew we had a dynamite script, and because people at New Line Cinema had told us we had a dynamite script.
Okay.
And we walked up in there, and the lady told me and him to our face. She said, Oprah will only do something if you can write her in it.
First of all, Oprah ain't that great of an actress.
But that's what she did. And so we were like, what? And then me being a young, I was like, dude, just write her in there. I don't care. She can be whatever, right? And,
so let's get this money.
Then we tried to struggle to think, well, could we write something? And then we sat there and said, wait a minute. Why are we writing something to cater to this woman who may not even do a story anyway?
Exactly.
So what I'm saying is they have to be open to open up the door to let more black writers in. Now, from what I understand, Tyler is trying to do that now. Okay. But in order to keep them studio doors open, in order to keep that business flowing, he got to do whatever, because understand, the black man, the black woman is always under attack in the film industry. Always. And any sidestep, misstep you take, they'll kick you out of there. They don't want you there anyway, right? Take your money and be gone. And they'll go and buy that studio up from you, right? Yeah. And say, oh, we built that.
I just get so... because the thing is, I want him to be like, I really want him to be that guy that when you think quality black television, quality black films, like that's being like Tyler Perry Studios, it's being cranked out of that. You know what I'm saying? And I believe that, and I'm hoping that it will eventually come to that. But it's just like, it's like for years now, it just seems like it's not getting better, but at the same time, I understand the machine, because it's like you said, it is getting a little. I'll admit it's a little bit better, incrementally better, you know. But I understand why he's doing this, because, like you said, in order for him to keep that stuff going, he has to put out at the volume that he's putting it out.
Tried to kill Medea off. He basically,
but he got a new one coming out on Netflix.
Yeah, but you gotta understand something. You gotta understand something, Mike. That man has been trying to kill that character off for years.
But it's not
because Medea is so popular amongst people, and it brings the money, and he got to keep bringing it back because that's what the people are craving for.
Right.
And have you noticed that the majority of the movies that Tyler put out that Medea's not in, they don't do that well?
Well, that's because most of them are kind of drama and they're kind of corny dramas, right?
So I don't take it. Medea is Tyler Perry Studios. You want to be honest?
He needs to, like we said, he needs to invest in better writers.
Right.
And to take a step back, like
and to tone her down some, because see, sometimes like over the top isn't always funny. At least not to me. Yeah. You know, I just.
Comedy's hard, man.
Comedy is hard. Trust me, I know comedy is hard.
It's hard.
You know,
it can either offend or it can win. And
it's a fine line that you have to balance on. And it's not that I have an issue with. I really don't have an issue with Medea because I enjoy Medea. She's funny. Yeah. You know, I like the character. Speaking of Medea, I wanted to ask you this because this is a conversation that often comes up amongst the brothers. In regards to the black man wearing a dress, I want to know what your outtake is on that because they say this is something with Hollywood that every black man has to
make right.
It's in order to emasculate them, and they have to wear a dress. Now, I can see that, but then at the same time. I look at Robin Williams, Mrs. Doubtfire. I look at Tom Hanks, who actually started out on a sitcom called Bosom Buddies, where him and his friend dressed up as women. Yep. And there were several other, white characters that dressed up as women. But then I always looked at that as just a part of comedy. It's just a man playing a woman and vice versa. You look at the Wayans brothers. That white chicks made millions of dollars, and I don't think it emasculated them in any way. I thought it was a funny movie, but I understand that there are some things that's a little bit more deep seated in that. So my question to you is: do we brush it off as just comedy, or are there some underlying things that we need to be mindful of?
I think internally there are always underlying issues here because what I think happens. Is yes, you can look at Robin Williams. You can look at there are many white guys who have played inside of dresses, right?
Tootsie. That was who was that? Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, and you have all of these films where that happens. But we gotta ask. Let me ask you a question. If Robin Williams had never made Miss Doubtfire, would you still know who Robin Williams is?
Oh, absolutely.
If these white men don't make those films, does it hurt their career in any kind of way?
No.
And so we have to look at what is the basis of that. Hey, brother, you got to be in this dress to go make this movie or make this show or do this episode. It's gonna go over well, right? People gonna love you. And so when you make it a thing where you have to do it in order to take that next step, then that becomes an issue. Now, I don't care. If it's funny, if you're in a dress, right, Flip Wilson or whatever,
right?
I don't care.
Geraldine,
right? But I do believe that once it becomes a standard, like somebody, you got people who will sit there and say, "You ain't gonna make it unless you put that dress on, boy," right?
Yeah.
Then that becomes an issue with me, right? Do I gotta put on a dress in order to be funny to you? No, right? And then it comes into the Dave Chappelle situation where Chappelle said, right? Are they laughing with you or are they laughing at you?
Yeah.
Right? And so that is a thing. Now, historically, we got to know, right, that the problem with putting black men in dresses and putting them in those obscure things, we was always the funny thing on screen. When you saw them, Roscoe and all them booking their eyes and they the talking to a monkey, talking about why you sassy me, monkey, stuff like that, we was always the comedic gold in those films, even though they was racist, right?
Right.
My son and me watched the old Disney cartoon where the doll was coming down the conveyor and Santa was snapping the white dolls as send them off, and then a black pickaninny doll popped off the thing and she said "Mammy" and stamped herself on the butt and ran away. And that was hilarious. That was comic gold.
What movie was this?
Yeah. Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on. Say it again, brother Eddie.
So Santa Claus is at the workshop. It's called Santa's Workshop. It's a Disney film, and the different dolls are coming down the conveyor belt. When the white doll comes down, Santa plays with the doll. He stamps it a thing on it and sends it off. A black pickaninny doll comes down. she looks at Santa, sasses and says, "Mammy," stamps her own big butt, and then jumps off the table, and Santa's just cracking up. Look, the history. Yeah, this is how they saw and what they did.
I need to watch this movie now. I'm intrigued.
Right? When you look at the original Disney Fantasia, you had a pickaninny, half horse creature that they cut out of the film, right? When they re-released it, because they was like, "Whoa, this is overly racist."
You know what? They but okay, I'm conflicted. I'm conflicted about this particular thing because they cut the crows out of Dumbo.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that song. I thought it was.
But that's the lure, Mike.
I know.
You to love the song.
I love that song so.
They loved it too.
Man,
Did you notice the part where the crow does? You ever seen the actual Jim Crow picture at the Jim Crow? You see the part in there where the actual crow does the Jim Crow part?
Yeah.
So again, it just goes to show you, it ain't just them. Hanna-Barbera.
My God,
they were bad at it.
Yes.
All of these Warner Brothers, they all played these horrible stereotypical things to get us into a conditioning that this was acceptable, and we're always funny. Most of the black movies that have been made, if you go look at the number of black movies overall that have been made over the last 70 years, majority of them are comedies. Yeah. We are there to entertain and make you laugh. And as ignorant and as stupid as we can be, it's going to make you laugh. Look at Steve Martin's The Jerk. At the beginning of The Jerk, Steve Martin is there with black people, right?
That's his family, if I'm not mistaken.
That was his family.
Yeah.
Right? And he's dancing or whatever. And there's a part in that movie, right, where the dude says, I think he said we're going to get rid of the blacks, the niggas or whatever. He's like, I am, right? These movies, right? The only one I ever give a pass to is Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks makes me laugh because Mel didn't care about who he was offending. He sat down when he did Blazing Saddles. People don't know that. He sat down with Richard Pryor and said, "Hey, let's write this as offensively as we can."
People don't even know that, Eddie. People don't even know that. Richard Pryor wrote on
Blazing Saddles. Okay, I'm glad you went there. Robert Downey Jr.
Okay.
Tropic Thunder.
Oh, that's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Okay. So I have to ask you about that because I get beat down because people be like, I don't care how you paint it. I don't care the context that you put it in. What he did was blackface. I get it. I understand it, but I don't think it was blackface in the context that we have known come to know blackface, because you got to look at it like this. He wasn't a white man playing a black guy. He was a white man who was playing a white man who got surgery to look black to get this part, and that was
playing the guy to look.
He was the dude disguised as the dude playing the other dude.
Yeah. You know what though? Robert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Robert Downey Jr. When he was approached to do that movie, he thought, "Hey man,
I don't know about that.
I don't know about this."
Yeah.
And so they tested it. And one of the things that Robert said was that I'm not trying to necessarily. He's not playing blackface to offend you.
Right.
And one of the things that I love that Ben Stiller did is they address it in the film.
Mm-hmm.
When the black dude is like, "What are you doing?" Right?
He said, "What do you mean, you people?" He's like, "Huh?"
Right? And even when he says, he quotes the line.
He quotes the Jeffersons theme song.
Right? But then the dude was like, "That's from the Jeffersons." He's like, "But that don't mean it's not right."
He said, "Just because it's a theme song don't mean it ain't true."
So I think that Robert understood that. What was you gonna do, right?
Right.
The character in the screenplay required him to be an actor that did this particular thing in order to get into this film.
I really think it was a shot at method actors.
It is in a way.
Because you know how some people be like, "Yeah, I lost 180 pounds and I only ate cheese for 10 days," and I'm like,
That's because actors are crazy. But you know, we always told at school, actors a little bit out there, right? Some actors, they just what it is. Like we was kids, you pretend to be something. Then you got the ones that's like, I'm gonna pull all my fingernails out to see if this really makes my hand swell. Okay, look, dude, you don't need to do all that, right? Or I'm gonna. Years ago, we was talking to this actor, and he was like, we had an idea for the script, and we were like, hey, blah blah blah, gonna do this, gonna do that. And the guy was like, well, I don't know anything about being a gangster. Maybe I should go in the store and just go rob something from the store, and it'll make me understand what it means to break the law. I said, well, if you go break the law, you go steal something out of the store.
You ain't gonna be in this movie, son, because you're gonna be in jail.
Right? It ain't got nothing to do with me, right? So people go overboard.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do that. It is an art. There's art to it. I've seen some really great actors get really into characters, but at the same time, yeah. Sometimes
so let's have the universal debate, right? Let's talk Halle Berry and look, yeah, you know I'm going there. You know I'm going there.
You talking about Buster's Ball?
Let's talk Halle Berry and let's talk Denzel. Now, you know they've been in the game for a while and they had some excellent movies and
look what they won the Oscars
and done some great work. Now, people will argue that Halle ain't win that Oscar till she got butt naked with Billy Bob Thornton.
Make me feel good.
And people will argue that Denzel didn't get the Oscar until he played
my nigga. My nigga.
Until he played his character in Training Day. I don't know how to feel about that because I'm a little conflicted about that at times. I would like to think that, especially in Denzel's case, I would like to think that they really just saw him differently because if you really think about Denzel, and this is one of the things that we always have about Denzel, a lot of the characters that he played are very John Q-esque, very everyday man. He kind of plays, he has a certain wheelhouse that he stays in.
Okay.
So, and this is just my opinion. There's a certain wheelhouse that he plays. It's a certain character that you will always get Denzel for. Movies outside of that wheelhouse, I thought he played was like Man on Fire.
Yeah.
What was the American Gangster? I thought when he played Frank Lucas, and Training Day, because it was, to me, Training Day was so much different than what he normally played. Like he was really out of his. I felt that he was really out of his wheelhouse when he did that. And he just did a really good, convincing job of playing a dirty DEA. Now, some people will say, "But why did he have to be a dirty cop? Why did he have? Why was it that role that he had to play?" And so
that's why I fall up under, because I feel that Denzel been doing it for a long time. This man played Malcolm X, which I truly feel he wasn't even. I agree with that. He should have got an Oscar, but I didn't think he was going to get an Oscar. You know why? Because it was about Malcolm X. But what I understand that what I'm saying is, I mean, I'm happy he got one, and I think he played that role real good.
Yeah.
In Training Day, but
you think he only got it because he was that thug character?
I feel that it's messed up because you give it to him and Holly on the same day, and guess what? Holly she playing a slow woman.
Yeah.
That girl on the couch when she's saying, "Make me feel good."
Make me feel good.
So, well, there's issues with both of those, right?
Okay.
I thought that Training Day was good. I had no problem with the film.
Exceptional movie.
What I noticed though, and this is the reason people always laugh at me because I don't watch the Academy Awards. I do not. I have not watched Academy Awards in over 20-something years. I may see a clip of it and go, yeah, whatever. But
it's been a minute since I watched it.
I don't watch it because I learned a long time ago that the Academy is just as racist and as bigoted as anything else.
That's why they had that whole thing about Oscars so white some years back.
Because that's what they are, and that's just who they are. They lie and they tell people that they're not. But we got to remember that every time they nominate us, every time they award us, they do it at a political behest.
Like kind of like an opportune time, you mean?
Well, I remember when Jesse Jackson went to the Oscars. This was around the early 90s, about 89, 90, where he was picketing, right, because of the jobs and things that were happening in the industry. And immediately after that, they nominated Boys in the Hood for something, and all of this stuff came. And everybody was, oh, it's a new era in black film. No, it was them trying to pacify the public. When you saw Training Day, look, Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman, Samuel Jackson, Angela Bassett, Courtney B. All these people had been in films and done extremely well in films.
Extremely well.
Danny Glover did some stuff. Different folks had done things for years, but the problem was that every year, right, they would go and award some white film. The year that Color Purple had all of these historic Oscar nominations, they won one award.
Yeah.
And other than that, they won nothing.
And I think that was for like cinematography or something like that.
No, it was. I think it was for the music. I think it was for the music.
Was it for the music? Oh, wow!
But I think it was for the music. But the bottom line was, right, because Spielberg didn't get an award for it. Matter of fact, they was like, why did he make this movie? Look, but the film that won that year was Out of Africa.
Yep.
No, who the hell has watched Out of Africa?
I noticed that. You know, Eddie, I've noticed that. Not trying to. I don't know. The best film in Oscars always be movies that we never heard of.
Yeah.
The majority of the time, the best film. It
Here
be
you go.
a film that we know nothing about.
And that's done on purpose. You know, when Moonlight won a few years ago, and I sat there and said, wait a minute.
Look, I already know why Moonlight won. I'm just saying.
I know why Moonlight won too.
I know why I won.
But I was tripping because the white folks were so convinced that Moonlight, no matter what, was not gonna win. They named the other movie. They was like, oh, and the white folks came up like,
they was like, no, man.
They was like, no, they gave it to this black movie. They was like, what? Oh yeah, okay.
My bad, Moonlight, you won. Come on.
You mean the gay thug black movie? Oh, they won? How's that possible? Right? And so again, we got to understand. And so how could I associate myself with something that obviously won't be there, right? Overseas, the International Film Awards and stuff like that, folks. Hey, everybody is there, but over here we are still dealing with racism, bigotry, lies, and corruption, and we still see it. We still see people posturing to get awards, right? 12 Years a Slave, didn't like the movie.
Really?
I'm going to tell you why. Because there was a point in 12 Years a Slave where that white boy is singing that song, and he's really into it. And I remember back to the earlier days of film, we're talking about the new Negro coming up in there, right?
Yeah.
How they would sell films with racial crap in it to sell it in the South. How they would remove black people out of the film, people like singers and stuff like that, to not show that we were smart in any kind of way. They did it on purpose. And so they wanted to sell to a certain demographic. I remember how when y'all remember when Scary Movie came out the first time?
Yeah.
And Scary Movie blew up, right?
Yeah.
But they only had about 15,000 theaters statewide when it first came out. They didn't have all them theaters. And I remember, I'll never forget it, when they came on the commercial, said, now in more theaters. Because they realized that white folks was leaving from their part of town, going over to go see the movies, and they was like, we can make more money off of this. That's Hollywood. This is what it is. It's still that way, and people need to stop lying. Remember when Matt Damon told somebody about he made a comment, got himself in trouble because he was like, oh, we include everybody. The black woman was like, hell no, you don't. You don't include us.
Oh yeah, he went real deep in it. And I was like, no.
And then somebody told him, shut up.
Right.
You gonna kill your brand. Shut up.
And he went back and he backtracked.
I got issue with that anyway, because that brother right there, me and my boy was writing for years, putting out stuff, doing things, trying to sell it through. How you gonna tell me Ben Affleck and Matt Damon write Good Will Hunting, and all of a sudden that's an Academy Award winning. Make it the hell out of here. What you telling me is
Gotta read it.
You have a whole nother group of people you were trying to bring into the business.
Yeah.
And in order to validate them, what you did was because think about that time. You had Matty Rich, you had John Singleton, you had all these folks coming up. Yeah. So you got to show, hey, the white boys know how to do it too.
And Good Will Hunting, look, and I like the movie, but when you talk about Oscar worthy, it's just like I don't even understand what that term means. Oscar worthy. It's like, what makes a movie Oscar worthy? Because a lot of the times, what would always kill me, like when we talk about the Oscars, and everybody's like, oh, it's just the Oscars is this, and I'd be like, but not in our circuit. And a lot of the movies that were up for like Oscar nominations and stuff, most black people would universally say, I've never seen that movie.
That raises the question: what makes a good movie? If I always ask people this, what makes a good movie?
Right.
And that could be subjective, right?
This is true.
But at the heart of it, almost every good movie, every movie that a general amount of people consider to be good, has some similar qualities, right? One of the first two similar qualities that a film should have, if it's going to be good, is if it asks me a question in the beginning, it better answer it in the end, right? The resolution better not be like the dude walking off into traffic. It better answer the question. When we talk about, that's why I was telling my son, I did not enjoy The Last Matrix.
Oh.
But I enjoyed the first one. And I always tell people the reason why the first Matrix worked so well was because at the beginning, the very beginning, the question is, at the very start of it, what is the Matrix?
What is the Matrix?
And it asks that question almost at the exact beginning. It shows you the green stuff.
The little data streams, and you be like, what is the Matrix?
And then once you find out what the Matrix somewhat is, they ask you another question. Who is the one?
Yep.
So they're feeding you story through not exposition. I'm not finna sit here and tell you, and so Neo probably it's not that. It's action. It's things that are happening that make me understand, oh, this dude
must be the one.
Maybe he is, maybe he's not. But when I get down to the end of the film, right, when Morpheus is like, he's starting to believe, he's starting to accept that he is the one, I'm satisfied as an audience because I'm like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for. What does it mean to be the one? So when he stops them bullets,
when he whoops
up that agent, right? And then at the very end, he flies off. You like,
he the one. I get it.
I'm sold. What's the next movie,
right?
That every screenplay should have something that leads you. If you find yourself in the screenplay or film and you going, what are you doing?
I have no idea what's going on.
It's called audience orientation. The audience is orientated to your reality the moment they walk in that film, whether it be Star Wars, E.T., Matrix, or whatever. The moment they sit down in that house or theater, they're caught up in whatever world you're creating. Every time you violate the rules of that world, you disassociate people from that orientation. And they start to say, this is crap. That doesn't make any sense. He told me that this was this. So why is he doing that, right? Yep. And so your orientation is so important. It doesn't matter if it's Rocky, right? Rocky is I want to go the distance. I ain't gonna think I'm gonna beat this black man. I'm gonna go the distance, right? It doesn't matter because at the end of the film, he does exactly what he was setting up to do, right? And so we say, "Wow, how is Rocky so good?" That's why. Right. It had to be great. Just had to answer the question.
Exactly. All right, so let's wrap it up. I want you to give a couple of film recommendations and some historical ones, and then just some films that you enjoyed or some of your favorite films that you'd be like, hey, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. I think you'll like it. Just give a few.
Well, I gave y'all some earlier.
Right.
Look, I'm telling you, go and spend some time. I don't know. I was trying to pull it up on YouTube. I found Body and Soul on YouTube. Look. get online, go watch some of Oscar Michaud's old films, even if they silent and you got to watch them by yourself.
Okay.
Watch those films so you can better understand what they were living through. Body and Soul is a great one. Make sure you watch God's Stepchildren. That was on there too. I did find that. But I want you to go try to find films like that kind of show you back in those days. Then the other thing that you should do is start questioning. It's not so much what you watch. Question the film. Not in the beginning. Maybe watch it, but question it. What was it trying to teach you? What was the significance, right? If it's a slavery film, what was I supposed to get out of that movie? Was it supposed to be just 2 hours of me watching somebody brutalize my people?
Come on.
Or was it supposed to teach me some lesson? Right?
And I think that was the problem that I had with what's the movie, Phil? Because you know what I'm thinking about. What's your movie? The Fred Hampton movie. Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yeah.
I watched that and it's just like I don't know what it was I was supposed to get out of that movie. And maybe I just watched it wrong. I don't know. I may have to go back and look at it again. But it's like, I think that was the issue that I had. It's just like, after I finished that movie, it was just like, I don't understand. Like, was this about Fred? Was this about the traitor? It really wasn't about the traitor because they really didn't tell you much about him. And it wasn't about the feds that was always. So it was just, I was really confused.
But you could take the jump off of that and go actually read about Fred Hampton.
Right, and that's the good thing. And
that's the whole point. Really, when it came to a movie like that, you really would have to do the knowledge yourself to learn about what actually happened. That way, when you see the movie, you already know what was going on.
Okay. I get that. That's fair. I'm sorry. Were you finished with your recommendations?
No. I was looking because Virginia made a comment about Sydney and these white women.
I saw that, and I'm just like, that's a whole nother podcast.
I wouldn't worry about it. But just understand that it doesn't matter what they marry, who they marry, how they marry, whatever. What matters is what's the story, what's the narrative, what's the moral of that story, what are they trying to teach you?
Right.
I may drop some stuff in y'all chat later on as I pull, because there's a lot of movies you can watch. What I will tell you to stay away from is the stereotypes. Stay away from the sapphires, the niggas, the coons. Stay away from the mulattoes, the gilwags. Stay away from those things where they try to make us out to be animals, because those movies they're still here today. Stay away from the angry black woman movies, right? We love them because I see people watch them all the time. But if that's all you getting from it, what is it laying in your spirit? And then more importantly, like Precious, what is it laying in that white person's spirit to think about you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just killed half of Phil's movie collection.
No, I didn't. No, you didn't.
Well, yeah, that's it, man.
No, you didn't. I called mine out. I'm gonna call. Matter of fact, I'm gonna call off 5, and it's not like I got 5 movies, but the reason why I got these movies because it tells a story.
Yeah. No, I mean, I want you to just think of 5 movies that kind of impacted you. All right.
I saw Malcolm X. The reason why I picked Malcolm X as one of the movies because it told the story of one of the greatest black men that ever walked this earth.
I agree.
All right.
I would also say Hollywood Shuffle was a good movie to me.
Good movie.
Because it told a story on how blacks was being treated in Hollywood with the whole, we looking for the Eddie Murphy type.
Mm-hmm.
And all that.
Right.
And another one would be South Central. Now, South Central was about this gang member who had to listen.
All I want is my boy.
He had a gang member who went to jail, and in the process of going to jail,
OG
his
Bobby
son
Johnson
had got wrapped up in that life.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
And when he dropped his flag, his whole mission, because he told the man said, go get your son.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, Lil Phil was a baby. I was holding Lil Phil as a baby when I watched that movie with tears in my eyes.
Yeah,
that's how proud that movie was.
It's real.
Now, I'm gonna say Boys in the Hood.
Good movie.
First,
good
listen. Little boy, the woman realized that he was starting to change, so she sent him to live with his father.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows you the fact that when a young man has a black father in his life, that's totally different. Because remember what he said about Ricky and Doughboy? He said that there's no man over there. And you're going to see the change.
Yep.
Because only a man can raise son. And you saw how when they grew up, he stayed on the right and narrow. Where Doughboy was in and out of jail. Yeah, Ricky was playing football and all that, but he still was a teenage father and all that. and you can see how the mother was making a difference because they had different fathers.
Yeah.
She like Ricky's father better. She like Doughboys.
Yeah.
And my last one will be Antoine Fisher. I would tell anybody, please watch Antoine Fisher.
Antoine Fisher is a great movie.
Because it showed about a brother who had anger issues in the Navy, and he ended up having to go see the doctor, which is Denzel Washington. In the process, when he finally decided to open up, you realize why he fought the dude for calling him gay. That was because he had been molested by the foster mother who was treating him bad, and her daughter was molesting him.
That's
so he ended up on the streets. He went to go live with his friend, and guess what? He sat there and watched his friend try to rob the guy, and he got blown in the brain. So there was certain issues going on with Antoine Fisher for the reason why he had so much anger. Then the messed up part about it was your mom give you away, and all that time she's right around the corner.
Yeah.
So that's why I picked those 5.
Oh, good.
No, that's good. That's good.
Now Antoine Fisher's good.
I want a different route because I knew y'all was gonna drop some jewels. I want a different route because I wanted to do movies that like I said, that impacted me or that left an impression on me. We talked about a couple of them today. Rosewood was one. If you haven't seen Rosewood,
please go watch it.
I will encourage you to watch it, and just be warned that you're going to be upset. You're going to be pissed off after you watch it, but you need to watch it because it's part of our history, and you need to understand, and just to see how a whole town was basically decimated off of the basis of a lie. It's just
sad.
I can't.
Sad.
I couldn't even bring myself to watch it a second time. To be honest with you,
yeah, it's
really a hard film to watch. But that was a film that really stuck with me. And even now, when people mention it, I get a little like, yeah, all right. But that was one. The Wiz was another one. The reason why I like The Wiz is because when I was coming up, I was a big Wizard of Oz fan. We watched it every year it came on. When I was younger, I was absolutely terrified of The Wiz. I did not like it. I didn't want no part of it. And I used to say, oh my God, it's trying to copy The Wizard of Oz. That's what I used to say.
Mike?
That's what I say. But as I got older,
you can't get out of the game, huh?
And I rewatched it, I appreciated The Wiz so much more.
Classic movie.
Because first of all, Michael Jackson in that movie. Say what you want to say about Mike. But that you can't win. Man, oh my goodness.
Hey, I play it, so when I go spin, I play it.
Yes. He killed. I absolutely love that movie, and I don't even watch The Wizard of Oz anymore. But The Wiz exactly fits the choreography. Nipsey, come on, man, Nipsey Russell. I mean that whole movie, man. When I look at that now, I appreciate it so much more now than I ever did.
It's good. Good movie.
Another movie was a little gem that I discovered on Netflix. And it's called See You Tomorrow, and it's actually directed. It's actually directed by. No, it's called See You Yesterday. I'm sorry, and it's actually directed by Spike Lee. And it was a story about these 2 young black kids, and they were really smart, and they had created a time machine.
I haven't watched it, but I know somebody. Yeah.
Oh my good. So what happens is
I'm gonna check that out.
It's called See You Yesterday. What happened is that the young girl of the story, her brother gets killed by her brother gets shot by a policeman, and he ends up being killed by this policeman. So the idea was for them to use a time machine to go back to prevent her brother from being killed. Now the thing is though was that every time they went back, they changed something.
You changed something.
And it wasn't always for the best. No. And sometimes, in some instances, her brother lived, and in some instances, it just delayed the inevitable. And I don't want to give away the ending, but
don't give away the ending.
But that ending was. But the movie was so dope because it got me to thinking, like, is it worth harping so much on things that happened? Like, because everybody be like, man, if I can go back and change the past, I'd do this. But how would it really affect your future? How would it really affect where you are right now? It's like we learn from the past. We don't necessarily have to change it, But
What's
we
the name
learned
again, Mike?
it's called See You Yesterday.
See you yesterday.
See You Yesterday. See You Yesterday. And of course, my all-time favorite is if you haven't seen it, which if you haven't seen it, shame on you, is Black Panther. Here's why that movie will always reign to me. In a time, and this is the whole reason why we did this podcast, we talk about how Hollywood has this thing that black films don't make money. The reason why Black Panther impacted me in such a way is for two reasons. Number one, you got the director Ryan Coogler. Now Ryan Coogler, this was his third film.
Yeah.
His first film was an indie project, which was Fruitvale Station. If you haven't seen Fruitvale Station, watch Fruitvale Station because it's dope.
Good movie.
His second movie was Creed.
Yep.
If you haven't seen Creed, watch Creed because Creed is awesome.
Coogler's a great director.
Actually, both of them are really good. He didn't direct the second one, but both Creeds are really good. So if you haven't seen them, please watch them. And so now here this guy is, young black director. And he went to Kevin Feige and to the execs at Marvel and said, this is my idea for Black Panther. They said, awesome. And you know what they did? They gave him $190 million.
Yeah.
And said, make this movie. Now, here's why that stood out to me. It showed that when you give us the resources and the same resources and the same opportunities that our white counterparts have, not only will it do good, but it will surpass your expectations. Black Panther broke records. Understand what I'm saying? The very thing that people was it's an all black cast and it blew most of box office records out of the water.
And it's an African diaspora story.
And come on,
that's deep. And that for him to be able to get, as I watched it, I was in tears watching that movie.
Man,
because
look,
and people wonder like why you. I said because that's the story of a black man. Right
yes.
There. When he left, and they left that boy.
Yes.
That's deep.
That's deep because look how that traumatized him.
Yeah, and what it affected,
and how it affected him. And then you look at some other things. I sit up there and I watch the movie, and there's this one scene, man, that I tear up on. Like after the first encounter, and he's sitting on the ship, and Okoye, she's piloting the ship, and she's like, "My king, we're home," and they fly into Wakanda, and it's like the music that's playing, and when you see that, and when you see this fictionalized place, it gets you to wondering, like, what would have actually happened had Africa not been colonized, had it not been raped the way that it was, and it was left alone to its own devices and to its own riches. What would that actually look like? You know what I'm saying? And so it's so many layers, and people just look at it like it's a comic book movie, but it really is more than that. I mean, and I'm not going to even talk about how it gave our kids something to look at and be like, yo, I ain't got to be Superman. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to be Spider-Man. I can be Black Panther. Come on, man. It's just, man.
Mike talked about that movie 2 years before it came out.
I'm telling you, I knew
before Black Panther came out.
Because I knew. I'm like, man, if this, I told Phil, I said, Phil, if this young man pulls this off, I said, I'm like, man, it's gonna change some things.
It's not easy, and I give him a lot of credit because having gone through some things in my life, trying to do film, it's hard, and people don't like you to be able to do it, and so that's a great choice, my brother. That's an awesome choice because it currently, in my opinion, it's one of the. I used to ask you the question: what name me a black hero? Real black hero in the movie, and you really couldn't without having some kind of white support.
Come on,
and that was a character that did not need white support.
Now this is a whole nother thing. But what's the fat dude that used to be on the sports show? Oh my God, what's his name? Whitlock. Do you know
Whitlock?
Kevin, what's his name? I forget his first name.
Jason Whitlock.
Jason Whitlock. Do you know he tried to spin that movie and say that and was saying that T'Challa was weak because everything he did, he had to get the approval of the women around him. I was like, are we really going? Oh my God. Anyway,
that's a man that don't understand his own culture.
I promise you, he don't. But look, man, Eddie. This was
I know y'all went long, man, but I was on the ride with you.
No, it's good, man. It went a little long, and I apologize for y'all that's used to the.
It was well worth it, though.
It was worth it, man.
Hey,
you dropped
so I'm working on some stuff right now. I've been quiet about my writing. I've been doing a lot of erudition, but
okay.
I asked some people. I think I asked both of you brothers. I choose people who I want to read, right? Some things that I write because I'm very specific in what I do. But I'm working on God willing, on a TV series right now. Oh, and so my thing was to finish the pilot and the story Bible for it. But that will be coming on down the line. So much trying to do because I'm trying to get back into what I actually enjoy doing. I like screenwriting, but I was disenfranchised for a while for the very things we talked about tonight. But we got to start teaching our history and our story. Yes, sir. And we got to tell those things. So you'll start seeing some more of that coming on down the
Yeah, because you know what, man? I wanted to talk to you, and we'll talk about it later. I wanted to get with you and try to collab on something because what I want to do is bring back those audio stories. Yeah. You know how they used to do like with the radio, and I want to kind of bring that back, man, and do some stuff like that. And I think that'd be dope because nobody's really doing it, you know, because people listen to like true crime podcasts and stuff like that. If we can I would love to get like an episodic type of audio type of thing going. But
I teach. I used to. I'm getting back to doing. I used to teach screenwriters and so and mentor them. So and playwrights and everything else because I know all that the nuances to that because that's pretty much what I am. You want to know what I do in film? All right. I wasn't the guy that wanted to be in front of the camera. Right. I wasn't the guy that wanted to be right behind the camera. I was the guy that wanted to be able to tell a story because to me that's the most powerful thing. If you tell a story, everybody else has to adapt to that story.
Everybody else, man. So. And we need it because it's just like you said, there's too many people that's writing for us that ain't us. You know, so that needs to change.
Yeah,
but,
like
man,
they're white people.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
All right, brothers. I know.
Look, before you get us back started, look, man, I appreciate you. Oh, real quick, let the people know about Erudition, man.
Oh, so yeah, you can always touch us with Erudition. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. Look for the Erudition Network and pull it up. And we talk about Black history. We cover Black history, but we're expanding this year to talk a lot about history that affects Black people too, not just our history, but the effects on things. So we talk about race and everything else, different knowledge. We share knowledge and Black history. That's the whole thing that's in it behind Erudition. So as we grow, last year was our first year, this is our second year, and so we're going to grow a little bit more and start doing a little bit more shows this year.
Love it, man. Listen, bro, I appreciate you as always.
Thank you so
much,
man.
I always say, man, you already know you got a seat at the table anytime you want to come on, man.
I appreciate you, brothers.
Just give us a holler. Look, man, that's going to be it for us. We appreciate all of y'all that hung around, man. We hope you got something out of it. If you haven't checked out any of those movies, please do so. You will not be disappointed. And look, we're going to be doing this again next week. Next week, our guests will be Sean and Natasha Pritchett of the MP3 Show. We're going to be talking about the impact of blacks in media. And that's going to be another good one. So I love you all. I appreciate y'all. And on behalf of our guest, Mr. Eddie Phillips, and my brother, Mr. Philip Hines, this has been the Man Up Real Talk podcast. And until we talk again, my friends, y'all get 2 fingers to the side. Make sure you holler at your boys. Later. Because we are, what do we feel?
Out. Peace.
You know what, man? It's just a little bit of energy, bro.
Out. Peace. Is that better?
I really don't like you. All right, y'all, we gone.